We're live.
last minute wardrobe adjustment there.
Yeah, I have a 2-year-old, so she yanks on my earrings all the time. So
nice.
You should be able to see us and share it, and then we can kick it off.
Okay.
I have to refresh the page.
Brilliant. One moment. All right.
Okay.
Refresh. Okay, live now. Share. Now public. Boom.
Okay.
Share to profile. Okay.
Here we go. We are ready to rock and roll. This is really awesome. Welcome to Practical Magic episode 23. We're with Oren Harris today, coach, magician, amazing human being, truly an icon of inspiration in my world. Absolutely. In so many ways, which we will dive into. And talking about how to make the practical magical, which I am obsessed with this concept because as the show, right? So the Practical Magic Show is all about how to create magic, but also take practical elements from the show so that people can do actual stuff with them in their life, right? The magic piece is kind of operating outside the norm, essentially, not doing what everybody else does, but sort of like getting what everybody else wants in a sense, both internally and externally. So as the show evolved, to me, a magical life has really shifted to, at the beginning, it was very externally focused, right? It was like, tell me how to create all this awesome shit, but in a way that feels really magical and amazing. And now it's like, tell me how to feel really magical and amazing, and the outcome of that be all this really awesome shit. And so what I love about our episode is that it's coming, of course, I'm just realizing this is amazing, at the most epic moment of divine timing, which we know is divine because we've tried to do this twice and it hasn't worked. Right. And it is working today, so that's divine. But I love where we've landed because we are talking today about how to make the practical magical. And I don't know what you're going to share. I'm excited to hear it, but I really like it because the show has been so focused on kind of creating this like epic magical life in a way that feels really, really good. But you have a kind of, in my experience of you, is that you have this different flavor of like everything you do seems like magic. And you said to me, I will never forget, it was so amazing. I said, what's your magic when we first met? And you said, I am magic.
I did.
I was like, okay.
And so is everyone. And so is everyone. I just happen to know that.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm convinced you were born knowing that. I don't know if that's true, but good. That makes me glad. So I want to dive in. I want to explore. I'm excited to pick your brain on how we can take, like, not just create a magical life, but allow everything we do to create that magical life to be and feel and create magic. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to see what comes through. It's nice to be here with you.
Yeah.
Truly.
So let's kind of start with, I think for me, I would love to hear from you, how is it that we can make the more practical elements of our businesses, of our lives, feel more like magic, as opposed to, let me just get through this and do this thing I need to do so I can have magic?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that's coming up to me is a recent experience that I had. So I'm creating this course called Transcendent Artist, and it's really about tapping into and unlocking your soul's unique genius and then fearlessly expressing that and giving it in the world. And so as I was in the lab, in the studio, creating and going into a creation session, I was feeling inspiration inside me, but it was not like birthing itself, right? It was getting stuck in the birth canal, right? And so I felt inspiration and stagnation, right? Which the stagnation, and this is what happens, this is kind of like showing the contrast between, magic and, you could say, non-magic, or separation, right? Which I'll illuminate here further. And so as I was feeling the stagnation, I was also feeling the inspiration and the desire to birth that inspiration into the form. The form would be the creation of this course, these modules, right? And so in that moment, and I'm going to kind of highlight two different pathways: the magic pathway and the, I don't know, whatever, the non-magic pathway, right?
We call it separation. I like that you use that term. So can we call it magic and separation?
Yeah, because there's a key to magic and understanding the difference between separation and wholeness. So an example of separation would be to say, okay, this shouldn't be happening. I don't like that this is happening. This feeling of stagnation is an obstruction to the magic. And so therefore, I'll do anything that I can to get rid of it. Which on a practical level, that makes sense. It's like, well, if I can stop feeling stagnant, then maybe I can birth this inspiration. So what happened was, and I'm so glad this came up, because this is one of those things that I don't think about. It's so instinctive. But in the moment, my pathway into magic, if I'm not feeling magic in what it is that I'm doing, right? If it's not feeling magical, and I'm not feeling magic, like even as a state of empowerment, was in that moment, I tuned in and was like, okay, what is the source of this stagnation? And asking that question without judgment, I could feel there was things in my space. And when I say space, I'm speaking, that's kind of an abstract statement, right? I could feel there was things in my space that were taking energy. And I'm like, well, what is it that's taking energy? Because it wants my attention. And what I thought about was, oh, I have some open tabs. This is a metaphor. I have some open tabs that are stealing energy from this moment. And that's what's blocking the full flow of this inspiration from coming into form. And the first thing that I recognized was, oh, this is kind of funny, right? I needed to clean up my house. Right. So now we're getting into something that definitely could be considered not magical and mundane.
And you mean your literal house?
My literal house, like clean up my literal house. Yeah. Right. And as soon as I saw that and I felt an expansion happen inside me, then I was like, oh, this is one of the parts of the methods in the madness. So let me record this. So then I wound up now creating content for the course around, like, what do you do when you're trying to go from frustration to inspiration or stagnation to inspiration? So I used it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now let me ask you a question. Did you clean up your house first, or did you film the content?
I wound up filming the content because, and this is what I mean by inclusion or unity versus separation. I wound up filming the content because the insight to clean the house now unified itself with the moment of creating the content. So I could have cleaned the house and done the content, but I did the content and then I cleaned the house.
I love this example a lot. And so let me pivot from the example a tiny bit and then we'll come back to it.
Okay. Yeah. Cause there's more to unpack in the magic of cleaning the house, but not as a means to an end, but an end in itself.
Talk about that first. And my question is still relevant. I'll ask it, but you might cover it. So go.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm saying several things at once. So now as I'm cleaning the house, it's not just a physical activity and a means to an end. A means to an end just means the goal is to clean the house. And once I'm done cleaning the house, then I experience the fulfillment and then I'm back in the magic. That makes cleaning the house a physical activity that's not magical. It's mundane because it's only being experienced as a means to an end. So for me, I have so many connection points into the physical activity of cleaning the house. So there's cleaning the house and there's like, the house will get clean. Yay. There's that. There's another layer of, oh, this cleaning of the house and the recognition of cleaning the house is actually me creating space because it's actually relieving life force energy that's stagnant. So I'm like, that's awesome. Do you see how I feel about cleaning the house now? And I'm like, oh, and this is helping me. It's connecting to creating this course. So now it's connected to my service and my purpose. And so what I'm saying is that me revealing these other layers of connection and how cleaning the house is connecting to my purpose, it's connecting to my spirit, it's connecting to my heart, it's connecting to my energy. Now I have like 5 things fueling my state of being. When now I go do the activity, I'm not just receiving one thing, which is my house is clean. I'm receiving more space in my consciousness. I'm receiving clarity of inspiration for my course. I'm receiving, and which connects to my purpose, which connects to my spirit. So now that's an example of taking something that could be mundane and having it be experienced as magical, and have it being amplifying the magic while I'm now cleaning the house, and also made it a lot more fun to clean the house. You see what I'm saying? It's like I linked it on more dimensions of my being, rather than creating separation, being like, okay, I'm doing this magical thing, I'm creating the course, it feels good. Let me stop the magic, go do something practical, and then get back to the magic.
You linking it all together. Like,
Right.
is this what we're talking about when we talk about really creating at a quantum level? Because it's like you're not just doing a thing. I like that you use the words, I'm allowing myself to receive multiple different at multiple different levels of this action. So it's not just a clean house.
Right. And that might sound like a technique, but it's actually just revealing how reality is always working, because the truth is, in any moment, there's always who we're being and what we're doing and how we're experiencing it. We're always creating consciously or unconsciously. We're always being artists of our life. It's not like that ever stops being the case.
Yeah.
And so for me, I guess I've just become over the years more present to that, and then more proactive about that. It's like, even like right now, I'm in a hotel and then I'm going to go to an Airbnb. Now, maybe there's going to be a 30-minute transition. My approach to the 30-minute transition is not like, okay, let me pause the magic right here of the magic completed. Now I'm going to go do some mundane thing only to get from here to here to the Airbnb, and then maybe the magic will start again. I'm not looking at it in that way, because then it becomes kind of like a deleted scene in a movie. And it's like, okay, this 30 minutes was just only a function to get from here to here. But see, that's a wasted opportunity. So I'm even looking at that. It's kind of become more ingrained, but I'm just explaining the methods of the madness.
Yeah.
At some point in time, I was started more consciously creating, like through the segment of my life, and especially the parts of my life, like cleaning or doing taxes or driving from one place to another, and consciously intending, who am I creating myself to be? How do I want to experience, right? Which brings me into a state of presence and receptivity, rather than like kind of going on autopilot for 30 minutes and then putting magic, oh, well, magic's over here when I do magical things, which means that I'm not magic. It means that the thing is magic. That's kind of, hopefully a practical way of explaining the mechanics of what does that mean to realize that you are magic and magical, like, than anything you're doing. It's a state of being.
And what difference does that make when you go for, and actually, let me ask you specifically, what difference has that made in your life? Because I'm selfishly relieved to hear that you were not born with this knowledge. It feels like very accessible and delicious. But like, so how has that impacted you, and share on any level, to go now to being magic in everything that you're doing versus like checking in and out of the magic?
Man, I mean, it's been profound. One of the first realizations that I had, that wasn't a pursuit of magic, but resulted in experiencing more magic, was just realizing the kind of insanity of people pleasing, right? Because people pleasing, in any version of people pleasing, and I don't mean being kind or caring or cooperative or harmonious or loving. I'm talking about people pleasing. It's a subtle way of trying to generate power, or trying to generate love, right, in the form of approval, right? And so that I realize the insanity of people pleasing, and that what it was that I was seeking out there, even just in a moment of being in a relationship with someone and trying to seek approval or validation or love, even unknowingly, that's not actually what I want. And so it's not actually what I want. So I can't be fulfilled by it no matter how much I do it. And so the retirement, which took a long time, but the retirement from people pleasing is one of the things that is like, well, what exists beyond people pleasing? What if I was not externalizing the essence of what it is that I'm desiring to experience when I'm trying to people please? You know, that started revealing to me, oh, what I really want is me. What I really want is to be myself. What I really want is actually to feel a certain way. And so as I withdrew my attention and gave more of my attention to that and started consciously going in that direction, which was a journey of self-love and all these different things and continues to be, then I started seeing and experiencing more clearly that my life and how I'm experiencing it is coming through who I'm being, not so much what I'm doing. And then as I put more focus and attention on that, then the unexpected magic started happening, or at least how, from our human perspective, we would define magic. Unexplainable synchronicities, manifestations that occurred beyond our own conscious orchestration. And I started realizing, oh, it's just it's like a station. As I'm tuning into and allowing that, or releasing some of the interference or noise, like people pleasing, that's kind of like distortions, like the Wi-Fi on the magic signal is like distorted. Yeah. Then the signal got more clear and stuff started happening that not only felt magical, but by my human perspective or definition was like magical. So like, oh, that's just what always is. We are creators and we can be in alignment with the creator and the creator in us, or we could be efforting to try to generate magic or even manifestation out there.
So let me ask you if this lines up with what you're saying. So my husband and I just got back from LA, which is a bummer because this would have been awesome to do face to face. I left last night, he got in last night, so it's okay. Yeah. So we joked that like we were super pumped about the trip. You know, we have a 2-year-old, so like anytime with just the two of us, and we're already like we don't even care what we do. But we joked that we were vibing high the whole weekend, and I mean everything was just like our rental car got upgraded. Our hotel location was perfect. You know, like we just like a small example is like we'd go to repark the car because we were in a 2-hour parking spot and the person before us was leaving. So we'd literally just like roll up into the next spot.
Right.
The cool people at the grocery store when we just happened to randomly pick the one side of Denver airport to get on the airport shuttle. And then when we looped around, there was no space for anybody else to get on the bus because it filled up. But like we got on, is that kind of like because we joke like we're vibing so high.
Right. And that's a great point, is that these manifestations are how we would define magic, because if we look at it from our limited perspective of our identity, we're like, we didn't plan that. We didn't see that coming. So it feels like, and we experienced it as magic. And I'm saying it that way for a reason, that from our human perspective, because this is also this revelation of like what is actually happening is what allows one to go from being a magician to being magic. One way I would say being a magician would be to understand the correlation between, oh, I'm vibing high and more of the magic happens. Conclusion, logical conclusion, well, let me learn, study, devote myself to vibing high, and equation, I will experience more magic. Mm-hmm. That's true, right? You learn how to dance more consciously with the universe through vibing high, through affirmations, through the spoken word, through the decisions you're making. That's what I would liken to being a magician. And it is a very essential and juicy and empowering stage of our soul's evolution. And there's another stage after that. And it's not to say that it's better, because it's not. It's just that one is giving you a glimpse of the other.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Keep going.
One is giving you the glimpse of the other. And that's what I'm calling being magic. Right. And so even if you're in the stage of being a magician or being in, I like say sometimes, flow mode, it can still help to understand on a fundamental level that you are magic, and to have that be your reference point as you are building your magician skills. You'll get even more out of them because there's less separation. Separation would be like believing that I'm doing this thing, this tool, this technique, this idea, this thing, and that is what is making me worthy of or creating the effect. And on one level, that's true. But on a deeper level, it's just showing you that you are connected to what you're calling magic, which means you are magic. It's kind of like the paradox, or I don't know if the word's paradox, but it's like God, the infinite, the creator, source, the universe, choose your flavor, is unfathomably more powerful and greater than I, this thing I call I, this finite entity. And at the same exact time, I am not separate from God, source, the universe, the infinite. That's a revelation. And the more we have that revelation, that's where there's less separation, because you're like, wait a minute, I am the magic. So even if you're utilizing some sort of, medium like the word or vibing high, then you really get on a more deep internal level that it's not that's creating that, it's that you are magic, right? And so even like a flow state's like a mini illumination. It's a mini revelation. We're seeing beyond the veil, and we're experiencing magical life, right place, right time, synchronicity, grace, ease, spontaneous genius. We feel like a superhero, right? When we're in a flow state. And so again, that's a great phase. Like, well, let me learn how to tune into the flow and all the different ways that I can tune into the flow and get into a flow state. It's like, yes, yes, yes. And what I'm saying is, fast forward, spoiler alert, revelation, that's because you already are that. And so when you're experiencing yourself in a flow state, or, having utilizing some sort of tool or technique or medium, and then it allows you to experience the magic, just know that it's only allowing you to experience the magic because you already are that. So it's revealing it. It's not giving it to you, which means you already are magic. You're not separate. That's what the homeboy Jesus knew, right? He's like, I and the Father are one. He knew that. So they're like, wow, he's a magical dude. He's performing miracles.
What I really love about this conversation right now is that I am hearing this conceptually and you are speaking it experientially, and I can hear and feel the difference. And it's cool. It's fun. Would it be
one more thing? This is essential. This kind of also adds to this revelation, is that, so this means that if you are being a magician and learning, adding more tools and techniques and things that you can do to your arsenal to experience a more magical life, just to understand deeply that when you succeed at that, it's not that you've done something right. And when you don't succeed, it's not that you're not earning the magic. The part of the illusion is that the flow comes and goes and the magic comes and goes, rather than we are attuning to it or not. We are allowing it or not, right? So there's not a value judgment. I think that's one of the things that kind of caps how much magic we can experience, is that if we externalize the magic, or even put the power in a book or something outside of us, and then we start to kind of judge ourselves by that, or define our worth by, wow, I'm experiencing all this magic, I feel more valuable. If you define your value based upon magic or non-magic, it actually limits the amount of magic. That's a block from actually realizing that you are magic. To realize that you are magic requires love. It requires you realizing that if you're experiencing flow or non-flow, magic or non-magic, that at your core, you are worthy of love and you are love. And that's that's not changing. And so that the realization of who you are fundamentally independent of the surface manifestation, non-flow, flow, magic, non-magic, difficulty, thriving, not thriving, the realization that you are worthy in love in both scenarios, you're not fundamentally more valuable as a being in either, is a key to being magic. Because when you think that when you externalize your power, or you kind of internalize your worth, like I'm doing it right, I'm doing it wrong, then you're creating separation.
I can relate to that because we had this like amazing trip. Every moment of it was flow and exciting and just like possibility. And we're like, vibing very high. And we get home. I slept 4 hours last night. I'm really fucking tired today. My daughter is like giving it to me, and it doesn't feel that same level of magic. And, my husband and I are very aware, like, wait, I said, we had laughed and hugged in the kitchen. I said, don't believe anything you think today. So tell me, I think I can relate to, I can take it on and in what you're saying. Like there is sort of like a value, unconscious value that I am assigning today, which is like not a great day. It just kind of threw it. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what I'm saying. So even the example I used about cleaning house and feeling stagnation on creating my course, what's really happening underneath the hood is love, right? So the ability for me to receive the insight and to alchemize frustration or stagnation into inspiration was, you could say I followed some sort of a process or thought process, but the real sauce is that I didn't judge myself and give a value judgment that something's off or wrong, or the magic's gone, or something's wrong with me. This is what happens unconsciously, which creates more tension and more resistance in your pursuit to try to be in the magic. Do you see what I'm saying? If I was like, oh, I'm stagnated right now, this isn't magic. It's not the words. If there was a judgment there of any kind, then what I'm saying is that blocks the love from flowing, and love is actually the purest form of magic. You see, but love is accepting, it's inclusive, it's unconditional. Which is why there's no separation there. You see what I'm saying? And so that's like the real magic behind the magic, that's the real magic. It's just in that example I gave you, it was so fluid in me, so embodied in me, that doesn't look like it's part of the technique.
Yeah.
But it actually is. Otherwise, I could have been like, oh, I'm stuck. Mm-hmm. I am stuck. Now I'm using the magic that I am to judge and say I'm stuck. But that's not true. I'm just having a moment.
So would that look like in my day today? I guess the tool that I'm using to access my magic today, because I'm in the magician stage, is like I easily have, like, I'm just surrendering to today. It's going to be what it's going to be, like, and not in like a defeated kind of way, you know what I mean? But just like in a, like, I'll be in the energy I'm in, and I'll be present to it. Like it's smoother than like a, okay, I tap out kind of thing. Is that how? Let me backtrack and shut up for a second. So like, I'm like, woo, words are just trailing off here. So what would that, I think what I'm asking is, what would that look like for me today? How would I make my experience of today less separate from the magic, given what I'm experiencing and how I'm feeling?
Okay, well, what is it that you're desiring? I'll start there. Like, what are you wanting? What are you desiring? There's like, I feel desire in you. What are you desiring?
Yeah. So I guess there's two levels. So there's a part of me that's desiring the physical manifestation of my speaking career. Like, I want that to move forward. Basically I want an email of someone being like, you're hired, and then the other thing I want that I'm desiring is, feeling connected to that sense of like, everything is great and I'm in flow and I'm inspired, and today is perfect and I'm enjoying I think it's that I'm enjoying my day in the creation of.
Right. So what do you believe would stop you from enjoying your day right now?
Um, Probably the idea that, like, because I'm feeling tired and low energy,
Uh-huh.
and I don't have like a lot of time outside of like the scheduled calls that I have going on, I won't be able to like move anything forward. I'm camped out for a minute. Like nothing can.
So that perspective or belief, like if you believe that, then it's even more dense, meaning it's more ingrained. That perspective then becomes the thing that blocks the magic. Not your reality, that perspective. That's a meaning that you've given to a feeling that you're having. But see, you're using your magic and meaning your ability to speak things and give meaning to things. That's part of your magic. And then the life force that animates it, that's your conviction. You're using your magic in that way, right? You see, but that's you assigning a particular meaning to a feeling that you're having, and then that's the universe of potential that you're existing within. So I'm saying the perspective itself, how you're defining it, becomes the thing that would block you from the receptivity to experiencing the very thing that you're wanting to experience and feel, as if it's not there. Which is why if you undid that, then it might seem like magic, and we're like suddenly like, wow, I didn't change my reality out here. I changed my perspective, which released the resistance and then allowed me to receive what it is that I'm asking for, because we think that what we want is a thing. And it's not to say that there's no things, but the only thing that we can experience is our state of being. That's where the fulfillment is, the full feeling. And that's always accessible now. But the judgment, which is existing even in the definition or the meaning that you're giving to what you're feeling, becomes the thing that creates a sense of tension or resistance on feeling what you're wanting to feel. Because you're believing that it's somewhere in the future, or there is an actual constraint. How could there be? Because there is no there. There's only you experiencing the state of being that you're wanting to experience and feel, that you're saying, you're describing as speaking, you're describing as whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if I were to loop, I love that we ended up here, because it kind of loops me back to the question that I didn't ask before about the cleaning the house example. So what I was going to ask before about the cleaning the house example is, because there's a great example, is because a lot of people would use cleaning the house as a distraction from the resistance, but you did not do that. You embraced that feeling of stagnation. You got clear on what was in your space, and you were like, oh, it's my house. And so that looped into your content, and you cleaned the house.
Right.
That's different than being like, I'm fidgeting around because I'm uncomfortable with my resistance. I'm going to go clean the house because it will make me feel better. So,
right. And that discernment and ability to have spiritual discernment, which transcends logic, right? Not that there's anything like logic can be useful. That ability to have discernment, and then to move within the path of where the flow is coming from the lack of judgment, or you could say the love. And that's why I said the love is the magic. It's even the portal to the magic. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Because it's judgment that would blind us from seeing in either direction. Like you said, cleaning the house could be a distraction from the resistance, or not cleaning the house could be a distraction from the resistance. You know, I realized that there were open tabs that were taking my attention, not because I should do them, but because they wanted to be done. So that's where the release of energy is. That's where the flow is. You see what I'm saying? I could feel that in the moment, that I needed to create more space to receive the fullness of this inspiration. But everything that I'm saying, part of what's happening in this inquiry, or even everything that I'm saying, is coming through the channel of acceptance, or I called it love. That allows me to discern, okay, this stagnation that I'm feeling, this resistance, what's the actual source of it? What's being obscured that's trying to move, that's not moving? If I'm in judgment that I should be doing my course, then I might conclude, oh, it's because I'm trying to do my course and it's not happening. That's why I'm stagnated. I'm like, oh, but love is at the foundation of that, to even be able to discern that, then to take the action, which becomes a magical action now. And the reason it's a magical action is because it came in the space of receiving the insight, which came from the acceptance.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
So now I'm taking an action that's putting into motion an energy, a flow that's already moving, because that's what I'm trying to get to, is the flow. I'm like, oh, there's the flow of the inspiration, there's the vision and the intention, which is to do the course, and there's a gap, there's a stagnation, it's not happening. So the ability to read the flow is coming from the love and the acceptance, which you could say then would be part of my process. It just happens so fast, but we're breaking it down now, like scientists. It's like, oh, okay, these are the steps, right? Being with the stagnation, even being with the stagnation for a moment without trying to be solution oriented, is what releases the resistance off of the resistance. And that's one of the things that traps us, is that we're feeling some sort of a resistance, and then we're judging the resistance. So now we're resisting the resistance and trying to beat it, which only creates more resistance.
Or in my case, anxiety, which has me want to like lunge forward, and which is like the worst, because actually slowing down to sit in that stagnation releases it. But like trying to distract yourself from it in any way, generally, like it doesn't.
Right. And what's happening in that, and we can unpack that really quickly if you want, is that you don't really know what's actually creating the anxiety. So your problem solving attempts could be off if you've misdiagnosed what's creating the anxiety in the first place. If you aim at the wrong thing, if you've misdiagnosed, and then your diagnosis is going to inform all of your creative solutions to try to, feel less anxiety, but you've misdiagnosed anxiety in the first place, then no matter how intelligent or successful you are, you're at best going to manage the anxiety, which is, that management is also a lower level, or a level of anxiety, right? Maybe it's just a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
Or you see what I'm saying? And so,
because it ain't magic.
Exactly. And it'll take more effort, but part of the reason it'll take more effort is because you're managing it, which is coming from the misdiagnosis, which is coming from the judgment. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Which I love, because it calls me back to something that you said earlier, which was brilliant, which is like, how did you say? I'm going to go back and watch this to see exactly what you said, but you said something like no matter how much of something you get that you don't want, it doesn't I can't remember what it was, but it was brilliant. You were talking about if you don't want it, more of it won't make you feel better. And this is kind of like the other side of that.
Exactly. So let's take another energy that's common. So there's anxiety, overwhelm, pressure. If you're feeling pressure towards a task or something that you're trying to create or do, then the non-magic path, right? And I say that playfully, right? Because we're talking about magic. Like there's the magical response and the magical path, and then there's the other path.
We'll call it the muggle path.
The muggle path. The muggle path is to go, oh, okay, I'm preparing for this talk I'm about to do, and it's really, really important, and that's why I feel pressure. So my solution to the pressure is to become more empowered, more intelligent, more prepared, and more ready. Because I know that the pressure I'm feeling is because I want to do a good job. You see, but that's not where the pressure is coming from. Because wanting to do a good job, it being important, you being enthusiastic about slaying, doing a great job, that's all spirit. You feel the energy, feel the vibration. That's where the magic is. There's inspiration, excellence, when it lacks judgment. So what is it that actually creates pressure? If you filter the pressure through the ego and the mind, then it's like you displace your power in a sense, right? So that's what's then blocking you from the magic, because now you're going to be trying to do a good job to relieve the pressure. But what if the pressure was coming actually from the trying to do a good job and making that the goal? What if that was the pressure, not the tension of trying of like, you see what I'm saying? And so it's like
hilarious because you're actually like working really hard to do a good job just because you created the idea that you had to do a good job, and it's like you're chasing your tail.
Right. And that the maximum goal, the maximum achievement there is still going to be mediocre. I was sharing this with a client earlier, is that if you're chasing excellence through this means, which we may not even know we're doing it, right? Through some also level of judgment, if you're chasing excellence, if you've externalized your power, if you've put the magic outside of you, then even if you achieve it, it has to be mediocre because you can't fully experience it or fully receive it. Conversely, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask if you could just unpack the word receive it a little bit more, because when I feel like there's some value in that. Can we do that?
Yeah, for sure. So receive it also means to fully feel it. It's like if someone says, I love you, or you're amazing. The quality of your experience or the richness of that compliment is only depending on how deeply it penetrates your body. You feel it in your heart and you feel it in your body. You actually let it in. But see, if you're reaching out to try to generate magic, magic could be all the feelings that we're trying to feel, right? If you're reaching out, then you've disconnected yourself from being able to receive. Then even if you accomplish from that state of being, then you're still not going to fully feel fulfilled. You'll still feel empty. You'll feel like there's more, there's more, there's more. And this is what my client was doing. It's like he was looking for more and more in his relationship. And I was like, well, what if what you're looking for is to receive more of what's present? Yeah. That's where the actual success and fulfillment is. Mm-hmm. So whatever mechanism was underneath the surface of trying to achieve, but not fully receive, then through love, then he started to receive without anything out there changing. He started to receive more of the feeling of the thing he was trying to achieve. That's separation. You see what I'm saying? It'd be like if I said, well, of course, I want to have an amazing podcast, but even more closer to the bone is I just want to feel and be amazing. See, there's no separation here. My focus is not on, is the thing I'm saying moment to moment going to get me the result? What's the result? My intention is service, right? So you could say there's a result. How well is this serving? But the non-magic path would be for me to separate service and successful service from me and go, there's me, and then there's whether or not I do this thing and then receive the thing. But if I'm like, if I've defined service and successful service as it's one thing.
Yeah, I know. And I love everything you're saying. And I realize that my brain is still exploding around the idea of like receive what you're trying to achieve. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch the last 3 minutes because my whole neural pathways were like
we're doing a lobotomy here, a spiritual lobotomy.
I do get what you're saying. It's like you can actually generate the feelings with which you're trying to get from an external place. Am I getting that right?
Literally. So right now, do you feel like this is useful, valuable, empowering, expansive?
Yeah, I love it. So good.
Okay. What I'm saying is before I was coming on this podcast with you, if I were to consciously or unconsciously, knowingly or unknowingly externalize this, separate from myself, and then get into this energy of effort and trying, which is also a form of judgment, in order to try to be as impactful, as intelligent, and all of these things that, are in service to the intention here for the podcast. If I were to do that, I have to separate from myself and say, oh, then if I accomplish that, then I will receive what I'm wanting to receive. But you see, that's not where my attention is. My intention is to be of service. The only thing I really need to put my attention on is being open and receptive. But see, that's how I've defined it holistically, that it just so happens to be that when I'm willing to bear my heart and my soul and to show up in the moment and to be present and receptive, that's when I feel best, but that's also when I can serve the best. See, so there's no separation. That's why there's no time. It's not like I'm like, we'll see in time how this goes. So I already start from feeling the fulfillment, and that's the state of what we're calling magic.
Yeah.
But if I were to be like, the magic is dependent on how Vanessa responds to me, what happens, then now I've actually separated myself, and now I'm trying to create magic rather than being the creator or being magic.
So can I ask you to put this in a practical example for me? I actually have one that I'll ask you to bring in. We'll kind of like ground. Maybe, I don't know. This might be the last question. There might be one more. So I think where my curiosity is going is like, okay, so I'm in this space where I'm wanting to create myself as a world-class in-demand speaker, right? That's what I'm creating myself as.
Yes.
So as I am engaging in different actions around this, what matters more than the result or the action itself is the energy that I bring to it. So for example, if there's a conference that I want to speak at, then tell me how this, like how can you bring this in for me?
Sure. Every single part of the process, what magic looks like is that you're being the world-class speaker. You're being the world-class speaker on the interview as a candidate. You're being the world-class speaker when you're sending an email about inquiring. You're being the world-class speaker in any single part of the process, because any part of the process that you create separation, then what you're saying is that I'm not a world-class speaker. I'll know that I am once I achieve the world-class speaker stage, and then I'm on stage and like, then I'm a world-class speaker, rather than I'm a world-class speaker. You see, so I'm a world-class speaker. So if you were interviewing me, I would just show up as a world-class speaker. I wouldn't be thinking about, well, how can I, get your good graces and for you to hire me, and then I'll be a world-class speaker. So how would a world-class speaker be in the interview versus somebody who's trying to be a world-class speaker?
Yes.
How would if I was going to send you an email inquiring, like I've sent out emails to inquire about things before, or I've reached out to people that, like, in fact, I shared the stage with a world-class speaker in the first year when I was speaking, and I had no resume. I'd spoken to 5 people in my living room. What gave me the audacity to reach out to somebody who shared the stage with, like, all the OGs, Deepak Chopra and all the guys? What gave me the audacity to do that? I'm only using audacity because it looked audacious.
Yes.
Is that I realized in my essence that I was a world-class speaker already. Mm. So that might be easier for some people to, that might be hard to access, period. But even if, let's just say it's easy to access, kind of like in your knowing, like, oh yeah, I am that. And then maybe if you're on stage, what I'm saying is all the steps in between.
Yeah.
Like I reached out to this guy's gatekeeper, his office, and I met him one time for a moment and had like a 30-second conversation. But what I'm saying is when I reached out, when I sent the email to even get on a call with her, to even talk with her about the possibility of her reaching out to him, in every single step of the process, and I did oscillate.
Yeah.
To Muggle versus magic. Muggle would be like, oh, who am I? I've never spoken in it. So maybe this would be such a blessing for me. That's not magic, because it's not true. And I mean this in a grounded sense, is I had an experience or a couple of experiences that revealed to me the quality of energy of being world-class, which I defined as a speaker as just being connected to source and being brave enough to be myself. So I recognized that the reflections I was getting even early on were not because I did something right. So I defined world-class. I even actually had, that was over a decade ago. I was like, oh, the same thing I feel in these world-class speakers when they're on it and connected. Yeah, maybe they had years of experience, but I'm feeling their soul. I'm feeling their heart, and maybe they're practice has allowed them to tune into that more and more and more, and they've refined it. But I realized I already am that, and I have that. So then now when I'm in the practical magic actions, I'm taking magic actions. And if I'm not, then I pause. For example, I'm going to send an email and I feel like my energy feels like, pick me, or I feel like I'm convincing or justifying, or saying language like, if he's open to it, I know you guys are busy. Like if I have a thought and I'm like, I know you guys are busy, I'm about to type that. This is as practical. I'm like making this.
This is so good. Keep going.
Practical as possible. Like right in the moment, I'm literally about to type, hey, I know you guys are really busy, and I know he doesn't really know me, and then I feel the vibration of that without judgment. I'm like, oh, that's a contradiction to my knowing. My knowing is I'm world class, my knowing is that. So if I type now and take an action that's not in alignment with what I know, then that's the vibration I'm in, and that's what I'm creating.
Yeah.
Then I'll practically pause, tune back into my knowing and my intention and what it is that I'm really wanting and who I'm really wanting to be and who I'm recognizing I am. And then as I tune back in, that literally might change. In this example, like, I'm not going to say that. That's not true.
Yeah.
Now I'm back in magic.
This is so,
that right there is a massive difference from muggle to magic, from effort to effortlessness, from grinding to magic. Because if I were to go down the path of pick me, even, or justifying, or then I'm creating effort. And this is great because I want to more define what is effort or effortlessness. It has nothing to do with the action or the amount of energy or the amount of work you're doing. It's that if I were to follow along that trajectory of like, the process and the steps of trying to create this, then because it's out of alignment with what I'm actually knowing, then now the effort that I feel in my nervous system, my body, and my actual action is the tension of the difference between my true self and my imagined self. Because my imagined self is the one going, hey, you shouldn't probably pick me because like, it's just thought. It's actually not me. So that's what I will experience as effortful, like the action, because I'm moving through the inertia of my own projection. That's the difficulty. And it's not that you can't create in that way. You can. You're not going to have as much fulfillment in the result if you even get a result, and you're not going to really feel the result fully anyway. So conversely, I sent the email, I did go back and forth. That was the process. I go back and forth a couple times, and I was like, oh, and then I just sent the email. I wind up on a call with her because she hit me back and said, she's like, oh, he said he remembers you. And so I then, it was magical.
Yeah.
Because I was already embodying the truth that I felt, which was without any ego or judgment. I was like, oh, this guy is connected as well. He's a powerful guy. He has something, and so am I. What could two powerful people do together? You see, so there's no pedestal at all. There's just the recognition of something that I truly felt was I have something of value and I feel passionate about it. Passion, magic. It's transcendent. It doesn't matter if I've only spoke to 5 people in my living room. What does that have to do with anything? Nothing.
So good. I love this because and something I think might be important to call out is I'm beginning literally just like, this is the process I'm taking myself through. Sometimes it takes me 2 hours to write an email because I'm so committed to sending it from a place of like more in alignment with my truth. And that oscillation is like harder for me to like come back from in some certain circumstances, maybe the bigger the conference or whatever. But like, even that is like an idea I put it on the pedestal. So I love
what does bigger mean? And it's okay. The thing is to notice that, and with compassion and truth, like tune yourself deeper into the magic, because just understand that bigger is only coming from your perspective, right? Your current vantage point of identity and familiarity with yourself. That's why you're calling it bigger, or even this is huge.
Yeah.
Because go ahead.
But I love the idea of pulling that back to just that's out of alignment with your truth of who you know you are. Because I know I kind of just and I love the definition that you brought into world class. Like that sits in my soul and my heart and my nervous system as like I always say, my nervous system accepts that. It's like fully like just
right.
Yep.
It's the truth of who you are, and it's your actual desire. That's the key. Is to recognize that, yeah, I want to speak on stage. I want to be on this podcast with Vanessa. I want to do the thing, but I'm wanting to be who I know I am. That's the core. And this is a key to realize that when we're in pursuit, it's not to dismiss the physicalized goal, right? To say it's irrelevant. It's just to say that, well, who are you going to be on that stage? Who you are. So that's actually what you want is to be you. So for me, I know that. And if I forget that, I remind myself of that. And I don't hypnotize myself into believing that the fulfillment is existing out there. And I'm getting to be me right now. Do you see? And my intention is to be of service, and I'm here with you. And that's how I'm directing that.
Yeah.
But I know that, oh, I'm wanting to be me, or what I'm calling me, right?
Right.
Alive, present, ready, inspired, connected, loving. Like that's the actual goal.
Well, am I getting this right?
On the deepest level, that's the goal. And I'm speaking about this from a state of unity, right? So it might seem like, well, it's not about me. It's not. But what I'm saying is that if I also know that who I'm wanting to be is part of it, then focusing on that, that's why it's obvious to me if I feel pressure and then I realize it's because I'm going after, I want to be that. And I'm like, the reason I'm feeling pressure is not because of the pressure to be that thing. It's because I've actually displaced my goal and put it over here when actually fundamentally I'm just wanting to be me. And that's transcendent of the stage, of the response, all of these things that are also important.
Well, I get that because what I hear, we kind of go back to that, just the practical example of sending these emails is like, if what I really want is to be the truth of who I am, and who I am is a world-class speaker,
right?
I get to be that in sending the email. Like that gets to be I get to be that world-class speaker in that moment. And if
right, not be that so that you get to be.
Right. No, right. I get to be that in the sending of the email. Like I just get to be that.
Right. And that's where energetically there's a massive difference if you approach someone from that place than if you approach them from separation and putting your power or putting the, being a world-class speaker out there based upon your accomplishments or them even saying yes to you. 100%. That in the energetic field makes a massive difference in your communication and how it's being received, even in their unconscious mind. So if you notice, the thing to notice is like when your energy reaches out and learn how to reel it back in, that's one of the ways to make magic practical, right? And not to judge yourself for that, but just to realize that when it's reaching out, that's the thing I'm saying creates pressure, anxiety, and overwhelm. It's not the task at hand and the level of bigness or importance of it that usually creates anxiety or overwhelm or tension. It's actually that we're reaching for something outside of us. We've set ourselves up to not fully be successful. And in doing so, we're in some type of separation or judgment. And that is what's creating the tension that creates the emotional state of anxiety, overwhelm, pressure. If we were just being the level we are, if we were just being innocence, if we were just being, and there was no separation between what we're creating, then we wouldn't, no matter how big the challenge or goal was, there's things to do, but we wouldn't feel overwhelmed. There has to be an I that's feeling overwhelmed, which lets you know that there's a difference between I and how you're defining yourself and I, your true self. That's where all the tension is. And when we pursue when we pursue the path of the I, where we're in more separation between our true self, then there's tension and frustration, all those things already built into that. And to keep in the theme of magic, we just have less of our power, and that's why it's less magical. Mm-hmm. Conversely, if we go in the other direction, then we have more access to our power, and then it's more magical, especially when we get to the love part and realize that that's the baseline source of it all. Then no matter what state we're in, we can always be experiencing the magic, and we can be magical in every step of the process. That's another way to just describe love. Right. And it's like love is the thing that includes everything. And so if we want to be more magical, we want to replicate or be more like the divine, or that which we call magic, then be like the most magical thing in existence, love, right? Which means inclusion, acceptance. It is as simple as that. That's the deepest part of my process. It's not like I don't have a look at like what's going on in my mind and work with my mind and do all those things. Those are like, magician type things, right? And learning how to manipulate thought and energy, and like the universe will respond. And love is the purest and most potent form of magic. And so because love is what reminds you of who you are and releases the resistance to what already is. So like, if it's being a world-class speaker, then you're like, oh, I am that. I am that, regardless of like how well that gets received or even how well I express it. It's who I am. So even if I have a bad day, it doesn't mean that now I'm not a world-class speaker. It just means that that's how my day is going, you see? Yeah. But that core starts to stay more and more steady, intact, because it's not oscillating. Yeah, you can have different levels of performance in different days, but your ability and your empowerment to be able to even manipulate that the way you want is coming in direct proportion to your level of love, which is why love is the greatest magic.
Let's mic drop that. So I know that you're doing some really like you're in a state of magical transition. You're literally like on your way from Hawaii through LA to Costa Rica, and I know you have a lot of like new fun things in the works for your business. So yep. Tell anyone who's completely enraptured and excited to experience more of you as they are, how they can find you, connect with you, work with you.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll tell you that, and I'll just tell you one thing that I'm really excited about right now. So how you can find me, I'm most popular on the Instagram at Oren Harris, ORENHARRIS. I'm also Oren Harris on Facebook. I'm not quite as active. And then my website is orenharris.com. So those are the three places to find me, and to inquire about, just to get in the loop of anything that I'm offering and doing. And I was mentioning to you earlier, one of the things I'm excited about is I'm creating a new program called Transcendent Artist, and it's about unlocking and fully expressing your soul's unique genius, right? And I use the word artist really in direct correlation with magic, right? In the sense of like because we're all divine, because we're all creators, whether we relate to ourselves as an artist or not, we're always creating, and we can be consciously creating our life. And so in that sense, whether you are a writer or a blogger or a content creator or a speaker or a course creator or a leader of a company, the Transcendent Artist is really about clearing, purifying your channel, your unique channel between your own soul and source, and bringing forth the most potent, authentic art, medicine, and being able to do so, because everyone has that in them. When we're connected in that way, anything that comes through that channel, the purity of our unique channel, is going to be most impactful. It's your art, it's your medicine. So the Transcendent Artist is something that I'm creating, and it's been a really fun process of reverse engineering the method to the madness and things that I've just done over the years to be able to be a prolific content creator. You know what I mean? Like it's non-stop. If anything, I'm trying to catch up, you know, to and that's something I'm inspired to awaken in others, that state of liberation and purifying the channel so we can get more of our medicine, our art, our message into the world. And there is a method to the madness. You've helped extract some of it even today. So that's something I'm excited about.
That's really cool. And so, okay, so when they go to the places that you described, they can find out more about that when it's ready.
When it's ready, or you know, feel free to message me, just ping me, you know, like, hey, Transcend, message me, Transcend.
Sex Transcend. That's beautiful. That's great. Well, I'm just absolutely blown away and thrilled by this conversation. It's been fun. It's been magical. I can't wait to go back and watch it again because there were 14,000 different places where my brain exploded. I'm going to go back and catch up to that. So thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Like, this has been really, truly a joy and a lot of fun. And yeah, I appreciate you. And thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, thank you.